All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Jay again, and it is September 1st here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we got a little bit of a break in the weather today. It's just a slightly cooler today. We've got an overcast day. You can see we've got some nice cloud cover. So what a good day to get out here and do this video, especially since, like I said, it's been the hottest year on records. We have shattered all the records this year of being over 100, 110 degrees. We've had so many days of that. Oh my gosh, guys, believe me, cabin fever has set in, and I am getting ready to get out here with these plants and start to detox after the summer because, man, I just do not like being indoors. I do not like it at all whatsoever. So I like my spring and I like my fall, so I can get out here and I can really get into these plants. So what are we going to be discussing today? We are going to be discussing this long hot summer that we've just made it through, and we're also going to be talking about how your plants should look and how much water they should be getting. And we're also going to be talking about the heat, because this time of the year the excuses pour out. Believe me, the heat killed all my plants in my yard. My yard looks terrible. I don't want to do this again. I have to start over every season making plants look good, and I'm really getting kind of sick and tired of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of walk through the nursery today. We're going to kind of look at some of these plants and show you guys how good these things look, especially after this summer, which is not over yet. Believe me, this is just a nice cool little weekend that we've had. But this also gives you an indication of how things should look and how green things should look over the summer. And that if something is dying, it is not necessarily dying from the heat. In fact, heat kills very, very little plants, guys. And I know we like to use that excuse because, hey, it's hot outside and my plant died, so it must be the heat, right? Well, that's not the case. And more likely, it's the case that your yard is dry and has a lack of humidity in order to keep these things nice and green. Because this is what they should be looking like at the end of the summer. They should not be completely torched and burnt up. In fact, you should have a lot of new growth, especially since we've increased our humidity lately, right? So that's why the plants are really looking good, but they made it through the summer quite well. In fact, everything looks really, really good here, nice and green as we walk through here. And remember, guys, I have 1,000 fruit trees here on the property, right? And I have had 0 losses. I haven't lost any of these plants, and I'm growing a lot of exotic stuff. Okay, it's not we're not talking about desert shrubs and trees here and bougainvilleas and honeysuckles. We're talking about, mangoes, guavas, citrus. Everything looks absolutely amazing. So there are some winners this year, guys. There are definitely some winners, and there are definitely some losers as far as what looks good, what can tolerate the heat, and of course, they all like the added humidity, like I just said before. But look how amazing these things look. These are potted trees, guys, sitting out here in the full sun, and they look amazing after the summer. Everything is grown here. It's grown locally. Man, it looks good today. And it's not because we just got a sudden little break in the weather. If you are from Arizona, you know that it is very hard to maintain a good looking yard for most of the year. And so keeping everything green like this is no small chore. But as we look through some of these, I'm going to kind of cover the issue of how you guys are planting a lot of these plants. So if you're planting something in an unnatural configuration, like let's say you've got a brick wall right here, instead of this wall, you got a brick wall, and then you've got rock out here where I've got this mulch and compost, and then you've got, like, say, a pool deck, right? So you've got all these things working against you, and fighting against these plants. So it's not the heat that killed the plant. It's the fact that you put it in a super unnatural environment where you really can't expect things to live at all, right? It has nothing really to do with the actual heat. It's the fact that you're putting things kind of by themselves, you know, in these areas that are open and hot, and you don't have any other trees or anything cool to support those plants. You got to remember, plants, they heat and cool from below also. People understand that they kind of heat and cool from above. Wow, look at these guavas. So if you're from here, you know how hard it is to keep guavas looking good in the middle of the summer. So these things look absolutely incredible as we go through here, okay? So what are the things that I am doing different? Look at these figs. It's absolutely beautiful. What are the things that I'm doing differently here that people aren't doing on their properties, and why they're losing things, and why they like to blame everything on the heat? Guys, that's just excuses. I'm telling you, it's excuses. If I can keep 1,000 fruit trees alive here, and this is just one of my properties, okay, I have several now, so if I can keep these all looking this good here, then it's really just a matter of, well, what are we missing? Well, we're missing, one is going to be the water element. So nobody here waters enough. I don't care what you say. I've only got maybe myself and one other client that actually waters correctly, and that's watering the correct plants at the correct time of the day. So what time period do I choose to water these plants? What time of the day do I choose to water these plants? Well, I choose the exact opposite of everyone else. So everyone's going to tell you to water during the evening, water in the mornings. It's going to be the best time on the plant, okay? That is not true, okay? That is the best time for you to be out there, because you don't want to be out there during the heat of the day, so you choose to water during the morning or in the evenings. You have to remember that most of these plants go to sleep during those time periods. Beautiful guavas, right? They're awake and active and drinking during the day. That is when they have the biggest benefit for getting a drink of water, okay? And no matter what I tell people, they're still going to tell me the same thing, and that's, you know, water during the evenings and water in the mornings, right? No matter how much success you have, people are still going to tell you, you know, that's not the way to do things, and that's the way we've done things. We've got mangoes out here in pretty much full sun. They get sun for most of the day. And these get full sun all day. Just get blasted. And out here, I've got them on concrete so that they don't grow into the ground, because if they grow into the soil and you try ripping those plants out, you're going to damage the root systems on them. So just don't allow that to happen, okay? If you ever see a plant that's rooted into the ground in a pot, I think I would try to avoid that one, because here's what's going to happen is if you rip that out of the ground, that tree is going to lose all of its leaves because it got tapped into the ground, the extra source of water and nutrients. So you want to keep them up on something to where the roots actually stay inside the pots. Okay, so it's good to have them on a good hard surface, but you have to also remember that that hard surface, which is concrete in this case, is going to heat up additionally. So by having a little bit of water and moisture on the ground, like you see I have here, it keeps this concrete cool. So now it's not exactly concrete anymore. It's going to allow that water to actually kind of steam off that concrete and cool down the plants and keep them looking really good. Here happens to be one of the winners. These are curry trees. And why more of these aren't planted here as just landscaping plants, because they do better than basically every other landscaping plant that people do plant. You know, your bougainvilleas and your oleanders and a lot of these other plants, even they suffer a little bit in the summertime, whereas something like these curries, you could just cut the water off completely and they look beautiful and green and lush all year long. So there are definitely winners after this year. Figs, I think, being one of them also. The figs just look incredible out here in the full sun. They're absolutely full of fruit, as you can see here, and their new growth is just amazing. These things just look incredible. So definitely year of the figs. These look absolutely amazing this year. The citrus look absolutely amazing this year. They're a definite winner out here in the full sun. Green. These look absolutely great. The curries look great. So it's good to go to some nurseries after the end of the summer and kind of see what they have that looks great. And then plant that stuff. Okay, that's the stuff you plant. Okay, if you want your yard to look good at the end of the summer too, then choose plants that are going to look good at the end of the summer. And a lot of the fruit trees will look good at the end of the summer. Got a nice pear here. He's looking pretty good. Even got some nice fruit on them, on the pear trees, so they can clearly do the heat. Mulberries, nice and green. They're of course a winner every year. Right. So yeah, everything just looks great. The figs though, man, they just, something happened with them this year. They exploded. The figs look probably better than any other fruit tree. The apples look pretty good too. So you want to look and see how things look at the end of the summer. Okay, that's the stuff you want to plant, and obviously all the tropicals are going to look good at the end of the summer because they like the heat and they thrive. They thrive with heat, you know, like the big old bananas and some of these mulberries with the huge leaves. Mango trees. A lot of these plants, they need the heat, so they actually thrive during these conditions. But you have to give them the extra water that they're required. Okay. Avocados getting a huge growth spurt right now. So not only do they look good, but they've got some new growth coming on. And as you guys well know, these burn up easily, and everybody wants avocado trees. And I'm telling you, you guys can have them. You're gonna need some additional moisture, some additional humidity. So let's get out of the heat thinking. Let's get away from the heat thinking and get more into the humidity thinking. Okay. Let's kind of dip into the yard a little bit, and I am going to go over the second point of today. The first one being water, and nobody waters enough, and it's not the heat that's killing your plants. Okay, they're drying up. Look at these beautiful pecans up here. No damage. The mangoes look great. And really, as you kind of walk through here, it's all pretty green. Right? In the summer, this stuff should be completely torched. I mean, I may have a few out here somewhere, but I haven't really noticed anything. And a lot of them are getting big, like a lot of these mango trees are getting a lot larger. Also, the sapotes look good. The Chiku sapotes, guys, that's another winner. Winner, chicken dinner. Write them down. If you guys are smart, you'll be making a little list here. Chiku sapote is one of my absolute favorite fruits, and definitely one of the winners for the valley as far as heat goes and fruit production, and they just look just killer this time of year. Sapotes, Mangoes look great. I just kind of wanted to walk you through here a little bit, you know, as a comparison, and you look at your yard and kind of tell me what you've got going on right now. You should have a bunch of new growth on a lot of these trees because they just got out of that summer, those peak summer. You got to remember, it's still hot, but the sun is a lot lower in the sky and the UV is not so high. So you also have those things to consider. Big old mangoes above my house, figs. Another huge chiku. Chiku sapote. So water, guys, water is number one, important above everything. If you dry these plants out, now the heat's going to get them, right? The heat will get them. Little loquat seedling there, just noticed, right? So it's not the heat. It's not the heat unless you've improperly planted something where it's not supposed to be. I'll give you a really good example of that is the saguaros. A whole bunch of saguaros have fallen over this year. Where have they fallen over? In town. They haven't fallen over out in the desert where they belong. They usually typically grow on the side of mountains where they've got good drainage, and they're also not planted around, you know, driveways and in people's yards as a landscaping plant. Saguaro is not a landscaping plant. Like, I don't really know how that ever happened, except I guess people want to get this desert feel, even though they're in the desert. So you can just drive out and see saguaros, I guess, if you wanted to see them. Completely inappropriate landscaping plant. Okay. So if you plant something like a saguaro in your driveway, in your front yard, in an HOA neighborhood in the rocks, yeah, I can see it completely not wanting to be there. Okay, and falling over and burning up from the inside. Same with a lot of like the agaves. You got to remember, like, a lot of these are planted somewhere where it's just slightly cooler, or on a mountainside, or there's another condition. They're not planted like we plant things here in Arizona. It's just crazy how things are planted here, right? And then meanwhile, saguaros are dying, peanut butter fruits are blooming and producing fruit. So that ought to tell you right there, right? So a lot of these tropical plants do really, really good. Okay, now let's get into number 2 of this video. For success, your number 1 is going to be your watering. Remember, it's not your heat, okay? So number 2, we already kind of discussed a little bit, and that's your microclimate. It's where you place certain plants, okay? So you guys got to stop with planting things kind of willy-nilly and all over the yard, okay? So I'm going to give you guys a really easy way to think about this, okay? I think this will work. I think this is a good way to do it, okay? Take your yard, split it in half. If everything on the east side, where the sun comes up, your morning sun, everything on that side would be tropical, okay? As you hit noon, 1 o'clock, the sun is straight overhead, okay? Start switching those to the stronger fruit trees, okay? That's going to be, you know, your peaches, apples, things like that. Then as you get more towards the west side, or more towards the afternoon sun, then you put even stronger trees like Barbados cherries, olives, curry. You see the figs look great this year. Barbados cherries look great this year. So those are the type of plants that you plant. So it's where you're planting certain plants, right? Can you put a mango in the front yard for the afternoon sun? Yes, it can be done. Is it 10 times harder? Yes. You have to shade it, add humidity, mulch, all these different things that you would have to not do if you just put those in the morning side of your yard, okay? So placement and the plant that you pick is very important. Like I said, you can't just plant things willy-nilly. You can't put the tropicals on the afternoon side, and the stuff that on the afternoon side, the citrus and olives, they don't want to be on the morning sun side. They're not going to get enough sun to produce, okay? They need more of that all day, full day sun, okay? So number 1 is water, not heat. That's what's killing your plants. Humidity, drying up. They're drying up, okay? Much like you dry up and you put lotion on, okay? Think about it that way. They don't have any lotion, okay? Water. Microclimate is your second one. So put the appropriate plants in the appropriate spots, okay? And then number 3 is going to be food. Food. People just skip by this one. I don't know how. It's like everything that's alive that I can think of is either going to eat or drink or both, okay? So they need food. And what does the food do? Well, the food sets up their metabolism for either the summer or the winter, okay? So people that will tell you, and they love to, oh, you don't need to feed anything. You know, just slap a little water at that thing every once in a while. They're not growing mango trees, okay? Or they're not growing some of these other tougher plants that require good food and good drainage. You need some form of food to keep them healthy, okay? It's their metabolism. Let me see if I can explain this simply, okay? You feed them in the spring, that's setting up their metabolism to be able to handle the summer. That's why my plants always look so good in the summer, is because I feed them heavily in the spring. You're always feeding them one season ahead, okay? Not for that season, but the one ahead. So you feed in the spring, that sets them up for their summer endurance. They can handle it. They can make it through all those days of over 110, okay? Metabolism, just like you have to eat healthy food to keep you healthy and going and growing, well, they need that too, okay? So the biggest thing is their metabolism, okay? Here we go on Labor Day. Labor Day feeding's coming up. Here's what I'm going to hear no matter what. I guarantee you I'm going to hear it. It's too hot to feed still, right? You want to wait till it cools down a little bit. Well, it depends on what kind of food that you're giving them. So I give them compost, which is 100% organic material, okay? And you're not feeding them for right then, because it takes about 30 days for that food to actually be processed into the plant if you do it organically. If you're using fertilizers, you're going to force feed it into that plant. And yeah, you may burn one up over the summertime because you fertilized it, right? This is a different form of fertilizing. This is a very weak form of fertilizing, is compost, okay? Therefore, you're setting them up for nice, slow growth over their entire life, and they don't spin themselves out. Fertilizers are going to act like steroids, okay? You're going to get a nice big plant real quick that produces, but it's not going to live very long. So you want them to live a long time. So I use compost, and that's what I feed them with. So that's how I get all this fruit you guys see. You're wondering how I keep things alive in the summer. And then in the winter also, because you got to remember in the winter, that's what this fall feeding is for, is to prepare especially a bunch of the tropical trees to make it through the winter without having to put them indoors or cover them up with sheets, okay? If you can keep them strong and healthy, they're not going to freeze. They're going to freeze because they get low on food and they get low on water. So therefore, your plants freeze, okay? So feeding is very important, and it is also the thing that is skipped across, or the thing that's forgotten the most often. You know, people will at least water something, but when it comes to feeding, not that much happens. You know, and I've seen people throw all kinds of stuff on these plants. You know, fish emulsions and tree fertilizers of all kinds. And keep it very, very simple. I use compost. I use eggs and old fruit. And I use some azomite. And people ask me what I do with all my food scraps all the time. What am I doing with these? Do I have a compost pile, you know, exclusively for, you know, composting? And no, I compost directly. I compost directly to the yard. So I take the old fruit that I've eaten and the old seeds and husks, and those go back into the trees. And you wouldn't believe how much fertility this actually gives the plants. So I don't do a dedicated pile, but they all end up in. And then let me show you the result of this. I just moved this pot that was sitting right next to it. Let me see if you guys can see this. I hope you can. All right. Sitting under just this pot. Do you guys see how many earthworms are here? The ground is absolutely moving. I hope you guys can see this. Try to be real still. Look at this. That's sitting under one pot of one plant. There are a bunch of earthworms there. Okay, and now they're the ones that are eating those food scraps and the leaves, of course, of the plant, and they're pooping, and then you're getting all that fertility in the actual plant. So as far as food scraps go, what do I do with them? I directly compost them to the yard, to the trees, to the pots, right? And then as far as what kind of compost do I use, like as a long-term feeding for the fruit trees, it's going to be a wood-based, fungal-based compost. And I actually have some of that available for the public, and really good results. Let's just put it that way. I don't even have to advertise it. And I don't. But I do have a bunch available for feeding for those of you that actually realize that that's important. All right, guys, so that's the 3 biggest tips that I can give you guys to keep your plants alive through the summer. And remember, it works through the winter too. We just have a longer summer. So people think more about the heat than they do about the cold here, right? But remember, this applies to cold weather also. So yeah, guys, if you'll just do these 3 things that I suggested, you will also have an amazing yard. And remember that a lot of these are just, they're excuses, guys. And a lot of landscapers give a lot of homeowners these excuses also too. You know, and a lot of them just, it's just not true, guys. There's just not based in reality. So, you may need a better gardener. I don't know. But anyway, guys, if you like this video and you enjoy this type of content, and you're also wanting a yard like this, where you can come out at any given day of the year and pick some amazing fruit for yourselves, then please subscribe to the channel and definitely pop by the nursery, because we are going to start getting busy here soon as we start to cool down. And of course, it's first come, first serve. So if you want some beautiful plants to get your fall garden started, well, this would be a good place to start, if nothing else, for good information. And please hit that like and subscribe button. I will be bringing you a bunch of videos here soon as we cool and I can get out here in the yard and discuss this better. And we will go from there. Let's get you guys gardening. All right, guys. Thank you for watching.